Hi everyone, welcome to today's webinar. I'm so excited for all of you to be here, but especially Georgina, our speaker for today. If you haven't joined us for a webinar before, my name's Henny. I'm the head of content here at Creator Economy Live, and we are running these monthly webinars for you. So if you haven't got involved before, make sure to sign up and stay tuned for the next coming up. I'm delighted to be here with our first webinar of 2025 with Georgina Whalen, founder and principal consultant at the Influencer Atelier. So Georgina will be breaking down today on how brands can blend digital partnerships with in-person experiences to create lasting impact. Before we get started, and I'll hand the mic over to Georgina, I just want to know from everyone in the audience why you joined today. Why did you sign up for this webinar? What do you want to get out of it? We might have some time for a quick Q&A at the end of the presentation, so be great to get some of those questions in early as well. So while you're doing that, I'll hand it over to Georgina, who can tell you all a bit more about her and also get into how brands are bridging their digital and physical worlds for maximum impact.
Thank you, Henny. I'm delighted to present to you all today and dig into how brands are bridging all of their partnerships with creators in the digital space on social with impactful experiential events. Make sure that as questions arise, you go ahead and add them in the chat so that we can make sure, if we're not able to address them during our time together, this half hour, that we can follow up. So I think I'll get started. All right, a quick overview of what we're going to walk through today, a little bit about me, and we're going to dive right into those details on who you should be activating, how to handle all of that nitty gritty, the logistics, budgeting, resource allocation, how to make sure that you're engaging in a meaningful way with your creators, and of course, diving into how to determine the impact of your efforts. A little about me. I got my start in this industry in 2009, actually as a creator. And back then we were bloggers because Instagram didn't exist. I quickly went agency side, realizing I didn't want to be in front of the camera. Um, Events like this do not do not count for that. And really built my career around working in influencer tech, agency, media, up until now with Fortune 100 companies. I consult with companies from in every area of the spectrum, from startups, from tech companies that want to build products for influencers, all the way to evaluating Fortune 100s, their programs, helping them be more efficient and innovative. So let's dig into who you should be activating. So there's two different cases. If you're currently not activating influencers, you're not going to want to dive just right into events. You're going to want to make sure that you're um, you're activating creators, developing those partnerships digitally before moving quickly into the event space. And you're going to want to treat influencers and who you select very much like your audience demographics and all of your marketing. You're going to want to dig into, who are they? What are their interests? What kind of content are they consuming and where? What are their values and how do they align with your brand and your mission? And you're going to want to do the same thing if you have been activating creators and now you want to activate them in real life. You're going to want to dig into all of that data. If you have these top performing creators, you're going to include a mix of them in attendance, but you're also going to want to look for what are some personas that are complementary so that you can have this holistic attendance or group that are going to be learning more about your brand, your product, your service, and amplifying all of that information to their audience. I always recommend leveraging a platform to get all of that direct data, the audience demographics, directly from the APIs. Um, every year, I evaluate every platform in the market. But I love, if you're looking for more affordable options, Sprout Social, Dash Social, they're great options to not only look at, you know, who follows these creators and what are their interests, all that information that you need, but also who's already speaking about your brand because their audience is already primed and ready to learn more about you. They've already maybe shown some interest or at least been exposed to your brand. Now, when you have your final group of creators that you're evaluating and considering um, hosting, you're going to want to look also through their feed. How high quality is their content? What context does their caption provide to engage and inform their audience? What is their tone? And is it similar to the tone of your own brand and on your own channels? Um, how is their audience engaging with the content? Is it very simple, kind of emojis, or is their audience asking questions? You're also going to want to look at who are they currently working with on a paid basis, and do those brands align well with your own brand and your brand values, or are some of them potentially maybe a little not not brand safe? Are they almost direct competitors? And just making sure that there is that full alignment. Because as we know, events are a big investment both in our time and monetary resources. Before any very large scale partnerships, for example, like we're going to dive into a few brand activations that include brand trips, you're going to want to make sure that you have a foundation um, to see how is their audience actually going to react. Is the content that they're going to be creating on behalf of your brand, amplifying your brand, is it even relevant to their audience? So before you go big, I would always suggest that you do a test. So with a digital activation, working maybe once, if not twice, just to see what is their audience reaction to this integration. Um, a good point is that it if your brand is new to the influencer's feed, this will be the first introduction, and you can kind of continue the journey with this experiential activation. Now, when it gets down to the nitty gritty of, of creating and executing an event, you're going to be thinking and putting yourself in the shoes of these creators and who you're thinking of inviting. Are you focusing on nano and micro creators that most likely have, maybe a 9 to 5 job that they're working full time and this is their passion project? Then you're going to want to think about, okay, will so a daytime event may not be the best fit. Um, you know, you may do it on the weekend, but a lot of people, if they're working full time and then creating content in the evenings, maybe they use their weekends for creating content, or they just want to unplug on the weekends. These are all very important things to consider. If you're working with full time creators and also inviting media, you may have a little bit more flexibility when you're going to be activating these creators. As far as timeline and task management, typically, when we're developing an event, we're working across social, communications, and influencer departments. And sometimes each department, there's just one person representing them, but we'll work together to create cohesive messaging, promotion of the event, the invitations, execution, and of course, the overall performance metrics analysis. This allows every touch point to be uniform, no matter if someone is looking at our feed organically, in an email, all the way up to the amplification of the event post event. When we're working with these creators, we want to be as transparent as possible. I always say leave nothing to chance, but also never assume that a creator is going to know something kind of basic. So right from the invitation. We always are very clear about where is the venue. For example, a lot of the events that we produce, they're in New York. So if you have an event downtown, it's going to be very different for people to get to versus if the event is in Brooklyn. Um, it takes a long time. There's a lot of transportation, timing that people have to navigate. So being upfront about that in the beginning will ensure that there's less confusion. Um, and if there's an aspect of the event that's going to be a hard start, for example, a yoga event, exactly when you're going to start your flow or when dinner will be served, you want to make sure that you include that because we all have very busy lives and creators aren't always showing up exactly when the event is supposed to start. I always include one single point of contact and their contact information because there'll be no doubt people will be wanting to text, oh, I'm running late, oh, I had an emergency, all of this information. So this way you can channel all through one person and most likely templatize a lot of the responses that you anticipate. That single point of contact, it can either be someone on your team, preferably, or a consultant like myself, who already knows what to expect and how to handle any curve that's thrown their way. As far as contingencies, you always want to anticipate delays, issues, some kind of technical difficulty, inclement weather, and of course, last minute cancellations. Typically, about last minute, about 20% of creators will end up not coming, or just something will prevent them from attending. So, if you're able to, budget wise, I always over allocate the attendance from RSVPs, knowing that there'll be plenty of people that they're not going to be able to make it. Now, when it comes down to the costs, um, you're going to want to prioritize the aspects of the event that are going to make the most impact. And that's going to be very dependent on your brand, on your product or service. You're going to think about the experience from the very beginning. And when I say the very beginning, I mean from that invitation. What tone, what experience is the creator going to be expecting just from that graphic or from that invitation? And beyond that, what do they anticipate your expectations are of the event? You want to make that, if there's something that's very important, you want to make that very clear. Not every event has to be like Grey Goose's most recent uh, ski trip in Courchevel. But you're going to want to think about this experience in order to make it special and unique. That's everything from gifted items that you're providing to small personal elements like a name card on the table. Oftentimes, when we're working with different vendors, I will double bid. Sometimes, if it's something very expensive, um, I will even triple bid to make sure that I'm very clear on these expenses for something very big and grandiose like a lighting installation or complete step and repeat. Um, I'll also, of course, always use referrals. And one other thing that I like to do, for example, if it's a shoe brand, is partner with local small businesses to provide aligned or complementary items in a gift bag because not only are you supporting local, but the creator is taking something tangible away from the event that when they use it or wear it, it's going to remind them of their experience with your brand. Um, Another great way to offset some of the costs is look for meaningful partnerships in sponsorship. How can you include other complementary brands and have them host a presence in a way that adds value and impact to the event and then offsets some of that budget that you have to spend. Lastly, a lot of brands like to leverage an event to promote a new product or service. This event serves as a major announcement, it also helps communicating this to the creators because they're going to feel very special, especially if the launch is embargoed. They get to be part of something very exciting, bringing this launch to their audience, like they're one of the first people to do so. Um, so it provides not only exciting excitement for them, but their audience. Now, when we're thinking about the engagement and experience, you're going to want to think about how are you creating something different for the creators? How are you um, creating an interactive element? And it can be everything from, something like a photo booth or a panel if education is a big part of your brand. Um, for example, I think about 6 or 7 years ago, I attended an event with Vital Farms, a really incredible company that is consciously raising chickens and producing some of the highest quality eggs that are available in the United States. And the price tag definitely shows you that. But as we were at this beautiful brunch in a beautiful restaurant in Boston, obviously we couldn't really see what goes on their farm, but they added a VR element. So we had these headsets and we were able to walk through the farm and see how the chickens were completely free roaming. We actually got to see some of the people that we were dining with on the said farm and the ways that they care for the chickens. So while we couldn't, I think they're located in Texas. While they couldn't fly us all there, we still got to really experience the heart of their brand and what made them different. You're going to want to think about how you can personalize the event for people. For example, with Grey Goose, they had all kinds of activations that we'll get into, but for the creators that were skiers, they had a very special element where they had the opportunity to ski on the mountain that matched their skiing abilities. While those that were not skiing, they had maybe the opportunity to enjoy a spot treatment. So think about how you can cater in these small ways to each segment of your creator partners. How are you creating moments that are shareable? One of the lowest hanging fruits in events is simply adding something with a creator's name or handle. That can be done on a custom menu. You can use something like Canva to create it with your branding, font, and colors, and then just stage their handle at the bottom. Um, I've done this so many times. And then Canva even allows you to, they have a printing service, but I find it's much cheaper to then send off the file to the company, to a printing company in your target city. It's a great deal cheaper. And of course, you get to support a local business. Um, a lot of, in the past 6 months, a lot of brands have wanted custom lighting fixtures. You see this in the NARS, you saw that in Grey Goose in the last slide. Um, you're going to want a serious branding moment um, that creators are going to want to capture, similar to these photos. Another great way to lend some authority to your event is co-create with a well-known creator, and preferably a well-known creator who's already a partner of your brand. That creator is going to lend the not only the trust of their audience, but they're going to hold sway with other creators who may, hold them to a standard, who, these creators follow this creator and are excited to be in the same room as this well-known influencer. That creator also may have insight into some new and emerging creators who you may not have considered that you'll want to include on your guest list. Lighting is vitally important. If it's a day event, you'll just want to make sure there's plenty of lighting. You'd be surprised how many day events that we've had. And when we're considering venues, there's not that many windows. So we have to get extremely creative to make sure that it's bright in order for us to be able to capture very high quality content. And the same goes for creators. If it's evening, we'll always make sure to set up artificial lighting to again maintain the quality of the photography that the creators produce. On the element of photography, most events that we produce always include a professional photographer who's provided a shot list. We know what we want to capture for our own owned channels, but we also do want to provide the opportunity for creators to get professional photography in that kind of shareable element, any kind of lighting or step and repeat. So we can then follow up after the event with a thank you email and an album that just gives them another resource in which to amplify the event. Make sure if you're working with a photographer that the photos that you distribute do not have a preset, because sometimes that will be a deterrent if a creator actually shares it or not. For travel to events, like I mentioned, if it's downtown New York versus Brooklyn, I always take it into consideration and will provide an Uber code. Um, Typically, the best thing about the Uber code is, maybe not everyone will even need to use it. And you're always, if you allocate maybe $25, $50 per creator, you're only paying the exact ride amount. And it just ensures that, nobody's dreading having to sit on the train for 35 minutes to get to your event, rush there, showing up kind of sweaty. This way, you're really thinking about every experience of the creator on their way to the event. How are they showing up? Are they showing up harried and just and kind of flustered, so that they have to take some time to kind of get into the mood of enjoying the event and amplifying? Or do they feel like this brand really cares about our experience, and I'm going to take that into account in the quality of content that I create, in the way that I engage with them, and how I'm speaking about them? Now, how do we measure the ROI? Similar to any of your advertising and marketing efforts, you're going to want to make sure that your event metrics align to your established KPIs. Are you thinking about just, you know, amplifying the reach, awareness of your brand? Or are you looking for something different, specific traffic to a web page, the growth of your online community, and more? You're just going to want to make sure that these KPIs do ladder up to your overall marketing and advertising goals, um, to maintain that cohesive result. As far as attribution, you want to make sure that these creators are using a unique event tag that allows you to follow all of the content that results thereafter. If you are driving to a web page, to an app download, anything like that, everyone is provided a tracking link from the get-go, with their confirmation, with their reminder email, and a promo code if they're offering something special because you're looking to drive conversions. Um, Tools like Dash Social and Sprout Social, they'll allow you to um, see all of those brand mentions and amplifications thereafter through social listening. And you can, if you want to go even further, if you've invested a great deal, do something like a brand lift study to see, have you improved or elevated your share of voice through this event? You'll always want to follow up with a post-event survey, thanking the creator for their attendance and then gauging their experience. It's always an opportunity to get feedback in order to do things better next time. You know, how did they previously perceive your brand, and how do they perceive it now, after experiencing it directly in real life? You can even ask, for feedback on what they would have wished you did differently. You'll obviously want to look at how did the content perform? What kinds of content performed best and on what channels? Because that may inform part of your content strategy working with influencers in the future. You may get a few surprises that the content performed even better on YouTube versus, say, Instagram or TikTok. And then you're going to look at, as far as how much you allocate and actually spent on this event, how does it translate into ROI? How close did you come to reaching or even surpassing those KPIs that you set for yourself? Um, and then, depending on how the content creator content performs, you may want to extend that partnership for your top performers. You may want to license their content if they haven't already agreed to usage to run ads, so you can get the most out of this investment. And then internally, with that social communications and influencer team, you want to debrief on what went well, what didn't, and any other takeaways that are important for you in leading up to maybe your next event, your next influencer activation. So some quick examples. Um, there were images previously in this presentation, but these are just some ways that brands kind of surprised and delighted creators, whether an in-real activation, event, pop-up, or brand trip. For example, recently, Fenty and Puma hosted a brand trip in Barbados, and they leveraged, the head of the brand, Rihanna. And I'm sure with Rihanna's attendance, there was no one that RSVP'd no. But along with the brand trip and integrating, the brand and its values, the creators got to really experience island life and island culture. And that adds a whole different, unique experience to just understanding Fenty and Puma as a whole. It digs down into Rihanna. We all know her as an island girl. And so how did that inform the brand that she created? For GOB that work with Spotify in New York, they're a very cool um, earplug brand. And so for this activation, they held it downtown and had a very, very loud DJ set. Everyone was provided the earplugs, and they could see how their experience was without the earplugs versus with the earplugs. They also even did a leaf blower blast experience to again demonstrate the impact so that people kind of understood just how beneficial having something like their earplugs um, would make the difference in their overall experience. I do want to save a minute or two for questions. So I'll leave it there, but everyone, I believe, will get access to this deck. Um, so any questions that you wanted to share with me?
Georgina, when people are putting in their questions, I like as an event organizer, very much resonated with that presentation, and yeah, I think um, it's like events are challenging to run, but making sure that you're set up for that success is so important. And like your audience, be it, I know sometimes brands can run trips that aren't just influencers, like it might be their community as well, which
Yeah.
it's like so important for that brand building. Um, I was chatting with someone actually this week from a skincare brand, and kind of what you said about co-hosting event with your influencers. They actually made a great point that they co-hosted a skincare event with one of their ambassadors, and then invited that influencer's friends to the event. So then you get like a whole new, I guess, uh, audience of influencers to your brand who are new to the brand sharing, which I thought it was like a really great example of that.
Yeah.
Um, do you have a favorite from, say, maybe the past year or so? Is there any brand trip that really stood out to you? I know you listed some examples there, but do you have um, any examples that like really stood out to you?
Yes. Yes. A brand that's doing this so wonderfully is Topicals. So you had mentioned, bringing in your brand loyalists. Topicals actually pulled their audience so that their audience could vote on who was invited to their brand trip, so that they weren't just getting the biggest creators. There were a lot of nano and micro creators that got to attend their brand trip. And the resulting content was so different, so unique and incredibly impactful. Like every marketer that I follow, they were all talking about how beautiful the experience looked from all these different perspectives. Topicals really does a great job of leveraging the culture of their creators and their audience, their existing audience, including them in the process. And I think that all comes down to, their brand identity and staying true to that.
Yeah, I also saw that brand trip and um huge fan of what they're doing there at Topicals for sure. There's actually like some Love Island creators that I follow that are their ambassadors and they're always away on topical trips and yeah, obsessed with them and what they do. I actually have a question from me and like it's funny how you know um say people in an influencer marketing role have event organizing skills from it's in their job and then like I'm an events organizer and some of those skills that I have as well. But one thing that uh, was interesting to me was when you mentioned kind of over invite people by 20% because you might have that um, like dropout rate of 20%. So I think like when planning these events, how can you kind of minimize that dropout? And yeah, any tips there?
Yeah. When it comes to ensuring attendance, we can never be 100% sure that people are going to attend just because life happens, and we completely understand that. But the elements like a big draw from, for example, Creator Economy Live that, we were all at in February, which was incredible. There were some wonderful keynote speakers and just headliners that your team worked with that drew massive interest. People were like, I want to be there. This is someone that I've followed. I can't believe I'm going to be able to see them in real life. You also included some great experiential elements. So people could do live podcasting with Jade Powell, who is like literally having the biggest moment on social right now due to all of her hard work, maintaining her personality on social, and just providing so much value. So you provided like so many different elements in different formats. People could podcast with Jade, people could watch some of their marketing idols, or sit in an intimate setting in the round tables. There were so many attractive elements that you all included in the event that appealed to all different kinds of people and attendees. And that's why so many people were talking about Creator Economy Live prior to the event and then discussing their experience following. So, thinking about all those different elements, segmenting your audience, and thinking about what experience might they want to have, and then, creating a very big draw. It's all about thinking about all of those different elements.
Yeah, and thank you for those kind words. I swear we didn't pay her to say that. But yeah, no, I think
No,
it's
you
like
didn't. Oh, no.
yeah, yeah. But I think it is also about understanding your audience and be that like, be it running events or running like events for influencers, really understanding like what those people want to get out of attending that event. So yeah, I think That's definitely uh, one pointer to remember. There is a question that came in here from Bridget. Bridget, one sec, let me just see. What are some differences between intimate events under 50 attendees and large scale events over 100 that are important to keep in mind?
Mm,
Good question.
that's a great question. I think when we're producing much smaller events, we have to be so much more detailed in our vetting process. We're probably honing in mainly on our target audience versus those complementary personas because the investment, every person, anyways, every attendee matters. But when you're working with such a small number of attendees and creators, you're going to want to make sure that every person attending is is going to get what you're hoping out of the experience and is going to produce something impactful, no matter how small. So taking into consideration that you may want to um, really invest a great deal more time in that vetting and making sure that absolutely everyone who comes down to on that final guest list is truly completely aligned with your brand as closely as possible. Second, when you're working with less people, you have the opportunity to provide more segmented experiences versus when you have a much larger audience. You really can't appeal to everyone. But with that much more targeted approach to the guest list, you have the opportunity to have these personalized touch points that appeal to them and thus appeal to their own audience. So thinking about, exactly, calling uh, that guest list down exactly to your target audience, thinking about those very segmented touch points throughout the event, but then also the opportunity to work with these creators a little bit more deeply, perhaps get their feedback, or even get their ideas leading up to or during the event, whereas it's just not scalable on a much larger scale event. Um, that is a great question, and I think I may want to explore it a little bit more and create a resource that I'll share with Henny and Morgan, so that we can dive a little bit more into that. I think it's an important topic to discuss.
Yeah. And also like uh well, I'll add my two pence, but
Yes.
kind of understanding what the say KPI is for having that event. Like it may be you want mass content production, so having more influencers there at your event, you can have more content, or like is it for relationship nurturing and yeah, building those relationships, maybe something more intimate is better in that sense. But yeah, and uh, also like different formats may work for different size events as well. So like a dinner is quite intimate, whereas like maybe a run club or something like that will be much more. You can have the numbers there as well. Um, but speaking of events, I know we've gone over time, but I'm sure there's still people listening in. Um, but speaking of events, wanted to mention our event coming up, Creator Economy Live, that's launching on the East Coast, which we're very excited for. For those who may not know, Creator Economy Live, we actually run influencer marketing events for brands, for brand marketers wanting to scale their influencer marketing programs. So you can find out more by scanning the QR code there on screen. It's taking place August 5th and 6th. Georgina, I hope that you will be joining us there. And Georgina actually
Absolutely.
led a roundtable on this topic at our event in Vegas back in February. I can't believe like the time's gone so quick since. So I had to invite her back and do this webinar with you guys for anyone who missed that roundtable. But yeah, if you want to find out more, you can scan that QR code. Georgina, where can people find you? LinkedIn, email, yeah, where can people find you?
Yes, you can find me on LinkedIn, just Georgina Whalen. Be sure to add me, ask questions, and I do hope to see you all at Creator Economy Live in New York City. It's going to be even more incredible. Um, I'm so excited about what you all are planning. I think it's a great opportunity to build, to learn, and just make these connections with other people in the industry.
Thank you. And Georgina, thank you so much for doing this with us today. The presentation will be available for to rewatch and re-download uh, probably within 24 hours on our website. And yeah, looking forward to seeing you in New York.
Likewise, thank you all so much for tuning in, and thank you, Henny and Morgan.
Thank you. See you soon. Bye.